Welcome to the Michael Zehr Show. Today's date is Friday, July 21st, 2023, and we're coming to you live from the Rising Eagle Studios here at the Warrior Healing Center in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Today, my special guest veteran is Charles Triblett. Charles, I want to thank you for taking the time out to come in and sit down and talk with us and share your story with us today.
No problem.
As we're doing this interview, and if you have anything that you want to add, feel free. Just jump in, and we're here to tell your story.
Okay.
And it's important that we share your story, because what the goal of the show that I do is it's to help veterans in our community tell their story, because it's important that these stories get out. Our community knows what our veterans struggle with, what they've done to succeed in overcoming some of these struggles that they've faced. So again, we thank you so much for sitting down and taking your time out for this. So I'd like to start off by asking you, where's home? Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. Spent my first 25 years there. Grew up in a lower class family.
Okay.
And in the African American community.
Okay.
And this was back in the 60s, early 60s, 70s, 80s. And I left Cincinnati when I joined the military at 25.
So when you were in Cincinnati at that time, after you graduated high school, what were you doing?
I actually went to college for the first time back in '81 when I graduated.
What college did you go to?
University of Cincinnati.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bearcats, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different college environment, university environment, and everything than probably what it is today. But I went there for close to 3 years. I was a professional student, didn't really know what I wanted to do straight out of high school, so I wasted that opportunity and finally had to drop out because I ran out of money.
Okay. So what was it that inspired you then to join the military? How did that story come about? Why?
Well, I wanted to get out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I wanted to travel and travel the world and see different countries, experience that experience of traveling and just being in different places. So I thought the military would be a good avenue or a good opportunity to do that. And I went in I think April of '88, and just happened to talk to an Army recruiter first, and he pretty much sold me on the idea of the Army.
Okay.
And I enlisted in the Army. Spent 8 years in the Army.
So when you enlisted, then you were still in Cincinnati at that time?
Yeah, I was still in Cincinnati.
So where'd you go for basic training?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
All right.
Yeah, it was,
well, you wanted to experience new things, right? So there's a good start.
Yeah.
The East Coast.
It was quite an experience. I got into the military at a transitional point for the military. It was transitioning from the old military into what it is today, the new military. So a lot of the things that I went through, it was at the tail end of them changing over. A lot of practices, a lot of ways that they train soldiers. They probably don't do that anymore. Some of the older vets would know what I'm talking about. in the 80s or whatever.
When the drill sergeants used to get in your face and belittle you. And,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
hollering and
Yep.
and the
build you down to break you, or break you down to build you up.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And they were in the process of tearing down the old World War II bunkers that had been around and installing dormitories, for or much fancier places for the soldiers to stay. And they had built some already, but I wasn't fortunate enough to be in that particular class to take advantage of that. So for AIT, it was a lot better environment.
Where'd you go?
I went to Fort Gordon,
Okay.
Georgia. Fort Gordon, Georgia, for communication, and I originally signed up to be a radio repairer, but I didn't really have the aptitude for that, so they changed me to a radio operator, and I spent the rest of my time in the military as a radio operator.
So give me a little bit of an idea what it was like, your first impression when you got to Fort Gordon, having never been there before.
It was. I was still going through the shock of basic training, as most new recruits.
Yep.
And so I had to learn how to adjust to the military life.
Yes.
And just I guess transition from being a civilian and become a soldier.
And was that transition for you fairly easy, or?
It was not an
No?
easy thing for me. No.
Okay.
I found out too late that I really was not a good soldier. I asked too many questions. I pissed off too many people. And
You mean to tell me you didn't shut up and just did what you were told? You actually, wow.
no, I had, in hindsight, I was much too old to go into the military and not have it be a better experience. I was 25 years old. I was one of the oldest, bootleg soldiers when I first trained, at boot camp. So I was like the old guy. There's only like one other guy that was older than me, and he was older than me by a couple of years.
But see, you had all that life experience, much more than the younger troops. So I would think that they would have made you like a squad leader or something like that.
Well, I did have the college experience, and they did give me a stripe based on that. I was a PFC rather than just
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and then they that did go a little bit towards me getting promoted at a faster rate because I didn't have that additional wait time to get my stripe as a PFC. So I spent time in the military. I was eventually promoted to a corporal status when I was, I think that I was at Fort Bragg.
Was that your first permanent duty station?
No, I was
No?
I was all over the world, it seems.
Where was when you left Fort Gordon, where'd you go? Where was your first permanent duty station at?
It was Seoul, Korea.
Okay, again, now using your words from earlier, you wanted some experiences. There you go.
Yeah.
That's got to be an eye-opener, right?
Man, that was culture shock.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Okay, to go to Seoul, Korea in 1989 and to be surrounded by a different culture, that was The economic thing about the dollar to the yuan. Um, I forgot what the rate was, but it was like for a dollar you could really get a lot of stuff.
Right.
And the disparity, the economic disparity, was pretty great at that time. Um, Not sure if it's improved much between now and then. Probably has. But yeah, I was over there and I took advantage of my situation because I really wanted to uh, explore and find out about a different culture.
Okay.
And after I got over my culture shock of being there, I would go downtown in Seoul, which is like the capital of uh, South Korea, and it's also the party capital for military, for soldiers. They would the bases that were outside or close to a DMZ or wherever, they would take buses in to Seoul, Korea, and Itaewon was the party capital for soldiers.
Okay.
So it was not unusual to see several buses come in, for the weekend with bringing soldiers in.
Well,
Just
and then
to
you're
party.
also in a foreign country where you have language barrier too, right? Because it's not, or did you know how to speak
No,
Korean?
there was that language barrier as well, and I experienced my first culture shock when I went downtown, um, which was pretty close to the base. It was within walking distance. I think no more than 20, 30 minutes away from the base. And I was different from a lot of soldiers that would go over there and they would just become what we call barrack rats. They would for their weekend experience, they would go to um, the concern and just buy 6 packs of beer or whatever drink they wanted, hard liquor or whatever. As long as were old enough, they could get pretty much what they wanted, and they would just bring it back to the barracks, and they would just get pretty much shit faced.
Wow.
I'm not sure. I can't cuss on.
It's cool. It's cool.
Oh, okay, yeah. And that would be their experience weekend after weekend after weekend. But me, I was curious. My curiosity wanted to get out there and really experience the culture. So I would go downtown and shop, and I was always aware of my environment though, and so I always was wary of uh, my environment. So I kept my guard up,
Okay.
and I would just go down there and just experience the culture. And was I happened to go past art um, college. It was more like a technical um, um, college where
Mhm.
they would teach um, artists how to do graphic art, or advertising art.
Okay.
Um, so I walked past that. It was the School of Art and Design in Seoul, Korea, and I just out of curiosity, I went in and I asked them, how much the tuition would be, and they had me. The receptionist could speak a little English,
Okay.
and she had me wait, and they went and got an instructor that spoke English better, and I asked him questions, and um, for some reason, he thought that would make a good advertising for the school because there were no Americans in these schools. They were just all Korean.
Okay.
So I think that was the reason why the president of the school, I met him. He took me to meet him, and he under the pretense of learning English, said that he would waive the tuition for me, and I could go to the school free of charge
Wow.
if I taught him a little English.
Okay.
And after being there for a week or two, and me coming in after my class with I would give him some type of English tips, and he soon lost interest in that, and I just wound up having the opportunity to go to this technical school for graphic design free of charge for the entire time that I was there.
The thing I find interesting about that is that the instructors had to be speaking Korean, right? Or no?
Yeah, they did, but there were some that went stateside to learn graphic design or whatever,
Right.
and they would pick up on the language that way, and they would go to England or wherever they spoke English, and they would learn
Okay.
the English language that way, and they would come back and get jobs as a teacher or instructor at these schools.
So then you were able to actually understand the instructor then when you were going to these classes. How did that? How do you feel that benefited you?
It was more of an experience of just getting into art. I'm a lifelong visual artist.
Really? Okay.
Yes. I decided at a very early age or a very young age that I wanted to be an artist. Even before I knew what the word was for an artist, I knew that that's what I wanted to be.
Okay.
And so I I was discovered by my fifth grade English teacher to have a talent for art, for drawing. And he took me to this school called School for Creative and Performing Arts in Cincinnati. And it was a brand new alternative school at that time. It was like only the second year that it had been formed, and I interviewed with an art teacher, and he had me draw some still life and to get an idea of where my skills were, and I passed.
Wow. I'd love to see some of your artwork sometime. That would be great if you ever want to share it with us, or maybe come back in a later interview. Maybe you can share some of your art with us.
I would like to.
That would be great.
Do that.
So we're talking with Charles Triblett, and he's sharing his time in the military. And we were talking about, for those of you that just joined us, that we're talking about when he was in Korea, his first duty assignment. He was going to tech school, culture shock, stuff like that. So, how about the food in Korea? What did you think? What did you think of the food?
Too spicy for me.
Too spicy, huh?
Yeah, I'm not one for spicy food. The kimchi.
I was going to ask you if you tried that.
Yeah, I tried. I just tasted it, and it burned my mouth. And
Yeah.
They like to really lay on the spices heavy for the kimchi, and that's something I could never get into. But I like the food that was not spiced up as much. And I had my first experience with seafood, a different experience from the restaurants back here stateside. That's not really seafood unless you go to, I guess, Long John's. What was the Red Lobster?
Red Lobster? Oh,
Yeah.
man, that's a big one around Sierra Vista, all the Red Lobster jokes.
It was. It's pretty big in Midwest as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really had it opened up my culinary palate for seafood.
Okay.
And then there was the German beer. I like I like beer.
Okay.
And so it was a different taste, the beer, and they had their strong brews as well, and it was just something like what would be a comparable one? Um, Budweiser. No, Budweiser is kind of mild compared to this stuff. But anyway, it was just for people that just wanted to get drunk, and they would come in liters,
Mm-hmm.
and they would just buy them in liters.
And where's this at?
This is in Seoul, Korea.
Okay, it is still in Korea. Then.
Yeah, still in
All
Korea,
right.
and yeah, and some soldiers would even acquire a taste for the Korean beer, and they would add that along with their six packs or whatever. But yeah.
So give us an idea what it was like when you first got to Korea. You were talking about culture shock, and we talked a little bit about going to the art institute and some of the food stuff. Tell us about your normal day-to-day activities as a soldier. What was your duty there as a radio operator?
Well, at that time, we were still using Vietnam era radio radio equipment, and they had the teletypes, and you had to do everything manually, and it was kind of like a switchboard with the wiring that you had to
Right.
actually plug in, and they would encrypt messages manually, and depending on how you configured the keyboard, the switchboard, it would encrypt the message that way, and then the receiving radio operator would have that. They would have their equipment configured in the same way, and they use satellites as well. And I found out that in Vietnam, that was not a good idea or a good MOS to be in, because they had a very short lifespan once the enemy was able to
Identify them?
yeah,
Right.
identify them. They were like the first ones to go, took out communication. But didn't have any experience with that type of thing. I came along after the Vietnam War, much later, by about 10, 12 years, maybe more than that. But anyway, they were changing over this old Vietnam equipment to a newer model, and they would use satellites that you have to antennas that you have to install or do set up manually, and it was more like a two-person setup.
And you had to do that? That was part of your
MOS, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always been strong, so I was able to kind of set up things just on my own. I could lift the equipment, even though a lot of it was a two-man thing. But yeah, and I did that primarily for the rest of the time that I was into the military, and it changed from a 31 Charlie to a 31 Delta to show that there was an upgrade with the equipment as well.
Okay. And how long were you in Seoul, Korea for?
I was in Seoul, Korea for a year.
And where did you go after that?
To the one duty station that I really did not want to go to, and that was Fort Bragg.
Okay.
Because they were, from what I had understood, and the other soldiers that I had talked to that had been to Fort Bragg, it was a gung-ho, airborne, type of situation. I was never gung ho or anything like that for when I was in the military. I was just there to do my job and just go back to my barracks and just chill out.
See, I was when I was in, because I always thought that kind of lit a fire under me.
Really?
Because I was the type of person where I needed that fire lit, you know?
Well, not for me. Once I got the discipline that boot camp instilled in me, I was pretty much good to go from that point on. So I didn't really need any additional gung ho type of environment, and I was trying to avoid that.
Right.
But
What did you do at Fort Bragg?
I basically did the one thing that I never thought I would do, and that's jump out of a perfectly good plane and do it again and again. I spent my first couple of months as what you call a leg. That's a non-paratrooper soldier, that hasn't jumped out of planes. And then I requested to go to airborne school.
Okay.
And they granted me that, and it was I think a month of learning how to jump out of planes and how to land and the whole 9 yards.
So going back a little bit to your very first jump, what was that feeling like, jumping out and that free fall?
I loved it.
You loved it, really?
I was petrified to sit in the airplane and to go up.
Okay.
But after I was out the door and my parachute was deployed, it was just a matter of enjoying the scene on the way down. And I found out that I really love jumping out of planes. I just love the adrenaline rush, and I just love looking around knowing that I was suspended and flying in the air like a bird.
Right.
And
Yep.
Everything was safe and controlled, with the parachute. It was just a matter of getting from the airplane door to the ground in one piece. So
Well, you're sitting here, so I'm thinking that you did.
yeah, I did. I was older, like I said, when I got
Right.
into the military, so I wasn't as gung ho, and I wasn't doing what they call chasing birds, and that's where you volunteer for every jump that comes your way to build your numbers up so that you can get the massive parachute on your chest, that little badge. I wasn't chasing that. I was aware that there was a price to pay for that later on in life, and that was the damage that you do to your knees and your back
Right.
for each and every jump. Because the parachutes that we used were still the World War II large round parachutes. I'm quite sure that now they have probably upgraded to the rectangle parachutes that are popular with just about everybody else. Maybe a little bit larger because of the equipment that you have to carry for each jump.
So then, did you complete the schooling then, and then where you get like jump status or jump pay or anything like that?
Yeah, I completed the school. I got the additional pay, and that helped me.
That didn't help. That didn't hurt, right?
No, it didn't. It helped me out quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I was at Fort Bragg from 1990 to 92. 92. Yeah, I think around 92. And then I re-enlisted for another 4 years. And I wanted to go to Germany. Always had this thing about going to Europe and seeing what Europe was about.
So where did you go when you went to Germany?
My first duty station was in Ludwigsburg, and it was at a concern that was closed shortly thereafter. It was called Craven-Lock Concern. And this was during the time period where they were downsizing everything in the military, and they were closing concerns or camps that were no longer needed.
Right.
And they were taking all of the personnel and they were reassigning them to and consolidating them to other bases and just making them much larger and just investing in those type of those bases. So I was at the Craven-Lock Concern for I think a year.
And what was your first impression when you got there in Germany?
It's beautiful.
Beautiful country?
Oh, beautiful country. I love the people. Love the culture. Love the country. Love the weather. There was very little about Germany that I did not like.
I've never been there, so can you describe it a little bit? Like, was it pretty mountainous, or?
Well, it was pretty close to my childhood city. As far as the weather was concerned, so there was very little adjustment that way. But it was a lot of country. Europe is very much into taking care of their country.
Right.
The city, the states. They invest money in their the infrastructure, and they make sure that everything is taken care of. Their public transportation is like the premium.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
you can set your clock or your watch by the time that of the public transportation. That is the primary means of transportation for the vast majority of the people there. It costs a lot of money to get a driver's license and to get a car and the insurance. They make it cost prohibitive.
Right.
For that reason alone. But the Autobahn, it's beautiful. And they keep it at a high state of repair. You don't have to worry about potholes. They really invest their money in that. It's just that it costs a lot of money to get the driver's license. You have to go to a school. You have to pay I guess the equivalent of $2,000 or $3,000 to get instruction.
And is that for soldiers as well as for American personnel that are there?
No, for military personnel, they have a very special situation. You can use your stateside driver's license to go to travel.
Okay.
In Germany, and it's the equivalent. They view that as the equivalent of the education or the schooling, the private schooling to get your license.
And did you have your own POV when you were there, or were you using the transportation system to get around?
I saved up enough money to get my own car, and it was a stick. It was the first vehicle I had ever owned. And
what was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a Honda Civic.
Honda Civic. Okay.
Yeah, it was white Honda Civic. I love that car. Oh man, the gas mileage was pretty good. Uh, Very low maintenance, very low,
Okay.
and that car. It was just a wonder for me to have a car. Period. And then to have a very reliable car as my first car, it was just a really good situation for me. And I had that car for like 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, about 5 years after I got out of the military, I still had that car.
So you had it shipped home then?
Yeah,
Okay.
I liked that car that much.
You liked it that much, you were going
Yeah.
to pass it on to the next GI, huh?
No, I just I used that car. And I was very frugal with it as far as gas mileage. I only had like 100,000 miles on it after having it for like 10 years,
Wow.
and that is unheard of.
Yes.
Generally people have 2 or 3 times that amount on their car, but I take care of everything that I have, or I try to take everything that I have with the belief
Value
that,
it.
yeah, that with the belief that it'll take care of me.
Yeah.
I guess that's part of the military. What I learned in the military as well. You have to take care of your equipment,
Yes.
and your equipment will take care of you.
So when you got to Germany at that time, how many years were you in the military at that time?
I was halfway through my military experience, so I was around 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had re-enlisted just to go over to Germany. And
Just so you could get some good German beer, right?
yeah, I found out that they were the king of beers, beer makers, rather, because they had so many different beers. And I was in beer heaven. And I just really love. They even had beer academies where it was more like a bar that had hundreds of beers that you could choose from, and it was all over Europe that they would
Wow.
bring these together, and you can sample them and see what everybody else was drinking from the different countries.
Beer
But-
heaven.
Yeah, but I love that beer, and I love the food too. It was I had a pretty good experience when I was over in Germany when it came to non-military stuff. It was I had the best experience. I would go on leave for 30 days, and me with my curiosity, I had to get outside of Germany and see what the other countries were about. So I would travel in my car to up and down Europe and go to France. And
So you fulfilled some of your earlier dreams then when you said that you wanted to travel and get some adventures. So
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, I really love Europe. I just love everything about it. I would go to vacation in Spain, Barcelona, Spain, and I would also vacation in Italy. And I would go to the
Okay.
beaches and spend my time there just recuperating and just relaxing and soaking in the scenery and the culture and the people, and of course the art. I would go to Florence and check out the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I got pictures of that
Cool.
and other things that were really relaxing.
So what after you were finished with your tour in Germany, where was your next assignment?
That was it for me.
That was it?
Yeah.
So you got out after, so how long were you there for then?
3.5
3.5 years? So
Three
you
and
were
a
there a
half.
long time.
Close to 4
Yeah.
years, and that ended my time in the military. But unfortunately, most of the time that I was in the military, it was not a very good experience for me. I was too headstrong.
Mm-hmm.
I had problems with authority. I asked too many questions, like I said, and I stepped on too many toes of my immediate supervisors and sergeant first classes and company commanders. And I saw too much stuff in the military to really have it as a good experience for myself. You know, I saw how some of the I saw a lot of how soldiers were mistreated or and that left a really bad impression on me. And my burnout was very gradual. It was so gradual that I didn't really notice that it was happening until it came time for me to get out of the service. And I found out that it was an accumulative thing that really wore on me. So by the time I was ready to ETS and finally get out of the military, I was like completely burned out of that environment, of the power structures and the entire thing that was the military. It was a different military than what the military is right now, post 9/11.
Right.
This was a peacekeeping military that I'm talking about. And a peacekeeping military is far worse, I think, than an actual military that's at war. The main reason being is because there's nothing to do, you know, except go out one field exercise after another, and it was back to back to back, and it seems like your downtime from being in the military would grow shorter and shorter from after each and every military exercise or training, because the doctrine back then, it was an unspoken doctrine, was to keep the soldiers out in the field so that they couldn't be back in garrison causing trouble. You know, so they would have one field exercise after another, and that wears and tears on you as well, because you don't have any time to really just relax and be with your family or just decompress from everything. So it seems like it's military 24/7, and you really don't have a chance to just relax and deal with it. Yeah, just too many things coming at you, one thing after another.
Right. So looking back on the 8 years that you were in the military, do you have a favorite moment or memory that comes to mind?
Well, my time in Germany, that was away from the military, the bases and everything. That I count as some very good time, as well as my time in Seoul, Korea, when I was away from the military and outside of the base and learning what the experience was in dealing with civilians. That was really a good experience for me as well. I'm a people person, and I love meeting different people. So that really was something that helped me out a lot. And I guess that was my way of decompressing or trying to get deal with the military.
Right. So when you ETS, did they send you back to Cincinnati then? Is that where you went back to your home of record, or?
Yeah, but prior to getting out of Germany, I had made many enemies of my immediate supervisors, and my platoon sergeant, I was at the top of his shit list.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my name was at the very top.
Not a place you want to be.
No. So anything that he could figure out to make my life miserable and to keep me on edge, he would do, and that was his personal mission in life, was to make Sergeant Triblett's life miserable. I had gotten sergeant rank by I think my second year in Germany. I had finally gotten that. So it was, what can we do to get his rank taken away from him? What can we do to make his life a living hell? He and the chain of command had this system of abuse that was pretty much down to a science. And it went something like this. My last 2 weeks in the military, before I was to ETS, you're supposed to be taken out off of field duty and duty assignments, like CQ or whatever.
Right, so you can clear and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can clear. My platoon sergeant made sure that that did not happen to me. He kept my name on those lists. So I was still pulling duties and going out to the field up until the last day that I was supposed to be in the military. He did not allow me any time to process out or to transition out. So he knew that I was very much burned out. It was very obvious when he looked at me at that point. And what he did was, I was out in the field for my last 2 weeks. He had set me up for a trap in which I was given some time off so I can go back to be with my wife,
Okay.
who I had just married 5 months prior, and I had not spent any time, very little time with. So I was enjoying my time out of the field, and then he came knocking on my door when I was with my wife, or he sent someone to bring me back to the field. And I was not a necessary soldier, or I was not it was not necessary for me to be there, because at that time I was working with equipment that a staff sergeant was also taking care of.
Right.
The staff sergeant was out there taking care of that equipment as well. So I didn't want to go back out to the field, and I did not answer the door. The guy that the sergeant that he sent, he went back to the field, and he told the staff's the sergeant first class that I refused to come back, and this was close to the end of the field exercise. It was like 2 or 3 days after they were to come in anyway. So the field exercise was terminated, and they came back, and I was still with my wife, and the platoon sergeant brought me up on FDR, failure to repair.
Right.
And he made it into like a major action, a UCMJ action, where I had to get a military lawyer and everything, and they were trying their very best to bust me down to E3 and take my sergeant stripes away from me. And the platoon sergeant got the company commander and the battalion commander to sign off on this, and they brought me up, and I had to spend an additional 45 days in Germany as punitive action, and it was extra duty, um, restrictive duty as well. Um, the whole 9 yards of how they can make your life a misery. And
So you stayed in an extra 45 days after your ETS, your original ETS date? Then?
yes,
Okay.
and I lasted for 30 days before I had a complete nervous breakdown, and I collapsed in the middle of doing my extra duty, and they called an outside ambulance to take me to a civilian hospital so that it would not be documented that this incident could pretty much be covered up. If it wasn't in the military, if I wasn't in a VA hospital or a military hospital, then they could easily hide that fact that I had a nervous breakdown. So I spent a day in a catatonic state in a civilian hospital, in a German hospital, and then I think 2 days afterwards or something like that, they released me, and I came back to the base, and they broke every record that they could think of to get me out of country in less than a week, because they knew that they fucked up.
Uh-huh.
And if I had been around, if I had a chance to really think about it, I could hire some type of civilian lawyer to pursue this and bring them up on charges. And that's something that would have reflected in their records, in their personal military records. So they got me out of country, and I came back to Cincinnati with my new wife, who was German, and she was having trouble with the language. She spoke broken English and everything. And I found out in hindsight that was probably the biggest mistake that I could have made for my marriage at that time, because I took her away from her family, and she was part of a very close-knit family, and I took her away from that to bring her back stateside. And I spent time working in one job after another, just trying to make ends meet. And she eventually got a job after her English got a little bit better, but she faced some difficult issues as well because her accent was pretty heavy. And the marriage eventually dissolved, and I eventually ended it. It ended in divorce, but there were no children from the marriage, so it was pretty much a clean break. And she met another person, ex-military. She fell in love with him, and she married him, and she had a family with him. And she's still here in the United States, in Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
The last I heard. Yeah, I've lost touch with her, but that was back in 2000 that I got divorced. So here I am, newly divorced. I decided it would be a good time for me to fulfill a long promise that I had made to myself about getting an education. So I took advantage of the
GI Bill?
Yeah, the GI Bill that
Okay.
I had at that time, and I went back to university, and this time I went back and I was focused. I was laser focused on what I wanted to do with my life, and that was to be an artist. So um, I applied for it, and I was accepted at the Columbus College of Art and Design. I spent 3 years getting my bachelor's in fine arts and in sculpting and painting and sculpting as well. And I had the time of my life.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, because I was doing something that I was made to do, and I was happy.
And you loved it, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good time for me right there. And I got my bachelor's in fine arts back in 2004.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you go from being in Cincinnati to coming to Cochise County? How
Okay.
did that happen?
Well, back in 2008, just before the bubble burst, the financial bubble burst in United States, and everything went to hell. I was in Bowling Green, Ohio,
Okay.
and I was seriously considering going back to a university to get my master's degree in fine arts. That's the one degree that I still would like to have, and that's the final degree that I would like to have in art. I don't really need it, but it's just something that I would just like to have.
Right.
I have all the skill, all the talent, all the training that I need right now to do whatever I need to do with art. But it would be nice to have that last degree. I have 3 other degrees besides the degree that I have in fine arts, and I have 3 associate degrees that I got when I moved to California. What brought me back to the West Coast was I was looking for a job, employment.
Okay.
Yeah, when the bubble burst, I couldn't really find a job. The jobs were erratic that I was working for a temp agency, working in the bank, and working whatever assignments that temporary assignments that they had coming up. But the jobs started to get fewer and far between, and I decided to move to West Coast to see if my luck would be better with getting jobs. And the bubble burst when I got to New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was homeless, and I spent like 5 months in the outpatient clinic at the VA hospital in Albuquerque.
Okay.
In order to stay off the streets. But I had to participate in their drug and alcohol program, even though I've never had a substance abuse problem. I still had to participate in that in order to stay there. And there were like 2-man rooms, and it was a downside better than being out on the street. So I stayed there for 5 months, and then I screwed that up because I didn't make their piss test on time, and they got together and decided this was a good excuse or a good reason to get me out of there, because I didn't really need the services. I just needed a place to stay, and that was probably not a good thing for them. They were looking to have people that had some serious issues with their alcohol and
Right.
and substance abuse problems. So I was just taking up a space that someone else that really needed it could have. So It got their excuse to get rid of me, and I was no longer able to get into that, so I was back in the homeless situation. I had saved up enough money, just enough money to get a bus ticket to go to Phoenix, Arizona, and this was the first time that I was. Actually, it was the second time that I had been in Arizona, but I had a pretty good experience my first time in Phoenix, Arizona. So I got a ticket and came here, and I was homeless at that time, but I got some assistance with the VA hospital, and they put me in a transitional house, and I was there for maybe 2 or 3 months before I got into an altercation with another person there who had a serious drinking problem, and made the mistake of confronting me or getting in my face, and I was just defending myself. But that was enough reason for them to kick both of us out, and I was homeless again. So I had enough money to get a ticket to go to Portland, Oregon. So I'm traveling. I'm like a gypsy.
Right.
I'm trying my best to find a place that I can
Call home.
yeah, to latch on to, and that I could settle down. And it's just not happening. You know, it's one situation after another. So I go to Portland, Oregon again. I hook up with the VA resources that are available in Portland, Oregon, and in this particular incident, it was the city concern. That was the VA Central, or the VA main place, main resource place, and they were. I was staying in a homeless shelter to stay off the streets, and that lasted for a few months. 2 or 3 months. I met up with a fellow vet, and he told me that he was driving down to Arizona, but he was going through California, and I asked him if I could tag along, and he agreed, and got as far as San Francisco, and that was my stop. I got off, and he continued down to Arizona, and I was again homeless in San Francisco. But I had enough sense and enough resource capability to know that I had to find another VA facility to get off the street and stay off the street. So I stayed in a homeless shelter until I was able to get into a VA sponsored transitional housing, and that happened, and I was able to move to San Rafael, which is just outside of San Francisco.
Okay.
It's a 25 minute ride by bus, and maybe a 15 minute. Well, it's probably the same thing with traffic across the Golden Gate Bridge. Maybe longer, but I stayed in San Rafael for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I was able to get a pension while I was in the transitional housing in San Rafael that the VA sponsored, and they got me permanent housing, and I stayed in San Rafael for 9 years after that, and I still have the pension, which is a hardship pension that I'm using now to live off of. and moved to California. Got too expensive. The cost of living is just crazy. Anyone that's lived in California knows exactly what I'm talking about. My landlord raised my rent 3 or 4 times in a matter of 2 or 3 months, and it was starting to get more and more expensive for me to maintain that. And then the food expense was going up, and I thought that maybe it's a good time to move to a cheaper place to live, and I decided to check out Arizona. So back in 2018, after being in San Rafael, and during this time period, I wasn't idle. I went to a community college. I wanted to utilize their studio spaces, their studio, in order to create more art. And while doing that, I was taking classes, different classes, and I eventually qualified for like 3 different associate degrees. And it took me about 7 years to get that.
Wow. So then how did you get from San Rafael then to Cochise County here to Sierra Vista?
I saved up enough money to pack up everything, all my belongings, and get a one-way truck from San Rafael to, actually I moved to Flagstaff first.
Okay.
Back in 2018. Stayed there for 2 years into 2020, and then from 2020 I moved down to Tucson. It was a weather issue for me, being an older individual. I'm finding that your body doesn't really take to really hot or really cold climates.
Okay.
Like I did when I was younger. So I went from Flagstaff, which was really cold during the winter. You get the snow.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, since this is too cold, let me go into a warmer place, and decided to. I knew that Phoenix was really hot, having stayed there for a few months. I bypassed Phoenix and decided to check out Tucson. And I found out that Tucson was just as hot as Phoenix. Just a couple of degrees separated.
Right.
So I was in another hot place, and so I went from cold to hot, and I stayed in Tucson for 2 years before I decided to move further east and check out Sierra Vista.
How did you find out about Sierra Vista?
I spoke with a vet that
Did
had lived in Sierra Vista, and he swore that it was one of the best cities that he could live in, or that he thought of.
Well, it made the top. It was number 25 in the top 50 cities on the Forbes list here that was just released not too long ago. So
it's pretty good.
Yep.
Well, I moved here in March of this year, and shortly after moving here and getting permanent housing, when I was still in a transitional place of being homeless and getting a permanent house, I found out about the Warrior Healing Center, as a resource that I should look into.
Okay.
And I decided to go and check it out. So like maybe 3 weeks after I had moved to Sierra Vista, I came to the Warrior Healing Center for the first time. And I met Bev, and she's just a fountain of information. She told me everything that all of the resources that Warrior Healing Center could offer.
That's our Beverly, all right.
Yeah, she really squared me away. So I heard about a couple of things that I found interesting, and one of them was the Velo Vets,
Velovets,
Velo Vets,
right?
which is a biking club for vets that they ride out every Wednesday and Saturday.
Yeah, Stu Carter runs that group.
Yeah, he's good, and they are up to like 72 members at this point. And Bev has done quite a bit to promote them as well, and to increase their membership. And she, any vet that she knows that cares about their fitness, she's going to be mentioning the biking club to them. And it's just a matter of having a bike and the equipment that you need, like a helmet or whatever, and you can join that organization or that club. And I'm very much into physical fitness at this point in my life.
Okay.
I want to create as good a state of health as I can with my body. You know, with the issues that I'm having, I'm finding that the healthier my body is, the less severe the pain and you know, everything that I have else that's going on with my body, the less those things are. So I'm very much into the biking. I also do weight training to tone up my body, and there's a fitness club that's very close to my apartment within easy walking
Good.
distance. Buena Fitness and Health, or Health and Fitness, one of those two.
And then you do the flute for vets as
Yeah,
well.
the flute for vets. She told me about that as well. I've always wanted to learn the Native American flute, how to play it, because I know that listening to that the flute is very soothing and calming to me, and I figured that if it was this calming to just listen to it, imagine what it would be like to actually play it, learn how to play it. So I've been doing this, the flutes for vets, for going on 2 months now, and I started off, you know, with very little knowledge about the Native American flute, and I just took to it like a fish does to water. And it's just something that I naturally gravitate to, and I practice, and right now I'm pretty good at it.
Good.
But there's one other thing that I really like about the Warrior Healing Center. Well, actually, two things. PTSD. They have two PTSD groups, one on Thursday and one on Saturday. I go to the one on Saturday, and it helps me with issues that I'm having right now as a vet. I'm trying to increase my rating or my compensation, and get a decent living pension than what I have right now. And PTSD is something that I suffer from because of my experiences in the military, with my supervisors and everything.
Right, what you shared with us earlier.
Yes, and this helps me deal with it because there are vets that have went through similar situations. They know what I'm talking about. I'm preaching to the choir. You know, they know the experience, and they also help me. They point me in the right direction of resources that I should use in order to help with my rating, because it's a battle to try to increase your rating, and there seems to be as many obstacles as they could possibly think about to that they place in front of you in order to get you that rating increase. And I'm just dealing with one obstacle after another, but hopefully things will work out. But it's a good resource to use, the PTSD group, and I can go there and just unburden myself, or if I'm having a bad day or whatever, or there's something that triggers me, and I start to, feel, bad about the PTSD or whatever. And I have physical issues as well, right, that need to be addressed.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing your story with us, Charles. I appreciate it so very much, and I'd like to have you come back at a later date and share some of your artwork with us and stuff. That would be really nice to do. I got a couple quick announcements here to read before we sign off. Today we have the Fun Food Truck, Gunny's Food Truck Fridays it's going to be at Gunny's Barbecue and Event Center at 5043 South Highway 92. So make sure you go and check that out. It started at 11 o'clock today and goes to 7 p.m. this evening. Also, this evening at the Warrior Healing Center, we have the Gratitude Drum Circle, which starts at 5 p.m. and goes until 6 p.m. tonight. Monday, July 24th, we have Qigong, 5 Treasures of Qigong, which starts at 17:30 and goes to 18:30 hours. And then also on Monday, starting at 1800, going to 2000, we have the Legal and Finance Seminars Veterans Benefits 101. On Tuesday, July 25th, starting at 1300 hours and going to 1400 hours, is the Women's Domestic Violence Support Group that takes place here at the Warrior Healing Center in the Military Library. Then at 1400 to 1530 on Tuesday, July 25th, we have the Trualta Hope and Wellness Support Care for Caregivers, which takes place here at the Warrior Healing Main Conference Room, Warrior Healing Center Main Conference Room. 1700 to 1830 on Tuesday, July 25th, we have the Cochise Linux Users Group monthly meeting, which will be at the Warrior Healing Center Main Conference Room. And on Wednesday, like Charles was talking about earlier, starting at 7:30, we have the Velo Vets Sierra Vista Group Ride. It starts at Pueblo del Sol Country Club, and they ride on Wednesdays and on Saturdays at 7:30. And last Thursday, 1800 to 2000, we have the Thursday night social ride by Team RWB, and they will be meeting at Culver's. Oh, got one more here real quick. Also Thursday, July 27th, starting at 1830, going to 2000 hours. It's the Warrior Headspace and Timing. It's a support group, and that also takes place here at the Warrior Healing Center Main Conference Room. So that's it for today's interview. Again, Charles, thank you so much for sitting down and sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Don't forget to stop by the Warrior Healing Center. Come on in, say hello. If you have any needs or you're maybe looking for information, you come in, you sit down, you do an intake form, and get the ball rolling, and we can get some things rolling for you, hopefully. So we really need you to take that first step, and that is to come in here to the center. So please do that. We're at 1838 Paseo San Luis. I hope I got the address right. Here in Sierra Vista, Arizona. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you again next Friday. Have a great day. Bye-bye.